What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Making Podcasts Great Again. I am your tech stuff guy, Jay Nog, and we are here, of course, with the President of the United States of Mar-a-Lago, Mr. Donald J. Trump. That's your new thing. Your new thing is like The Rock gloating, but it's straight up. Isn't The Rock usually to the side and he's got the eyebrow up?
Well, that's because that's The Rock. What I'm doing is called the Trump. So there's no similarity. By the way, was The Rock ever president? Refresh my memory.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, so he's not doing. Why would I do anything him? He should be. He's trying to be me. I think. I think he's going to try to be me.
But didn't he do it first? He was the one who did the whole.
But I'm not doing that.
It's pretty close, though.
Well, you know what? I'm 6'3", 240 pounds, and a strong Christian, but nobody thinks I'm Tim Tebow.
Okay. And you didn't get an NFL contract today, so I guess you are correct. Okay.
At least Kaepernick didn't.
We can talk about that later. Now, Mr. President, we have a special guest today. I'm very excited for this guest. I've been watching him the whole pandemic. It's almost like a celebrity being on here. We have, and don't get mad at me for booking him, we have Dr. Fauci here today. Dr. Fauci, how are you?
Oh, well, I'm doing very good. I'm honored to be on the show, and maybe we can clear up if there's any residual disinformation lingering from, let's say, hypothetically, the last administration. But very excited to get that on the table and let the American people know exactly, where we're headed, where we've been, and some optimistic news for sure.
Dr. Fauci, it's an honor. I'm vaccinated. I've been listening to you the whole entire pandemic. Thank you for guiding me through this. Mr. President, you look like someone farted in the room. You look very upset, like there's a bad smell near you. Are you okay?
Well, I hear you talking all sorts of nonsense. You've never thanked me. Fauci, hello, Fauci. Welcome back. I don't call you doctor.
There we
You
go.
know, you tech stuff got vaccinated. It's called the Trump vaccine. Who was president when the vaccine came out? It was me. Who's technically still the president if you don't count the fake votes? Me. You never thanked me once for the vaccine. Fauci comes on. All he was the mask guy. He was the mask and wash your hands guy, and you're thanking him for the Trump vaccine. So congratulations on your last episode, tech stuff.
Oh, that's
A tally for every time there's misinformation. I keep a tally, and we can run those through the lab, and maybe have a vaccine, because really what they don't mention was there was two pandemics happening. Of course, the one from China, and the second one, the spread of disinformation. And we're actually working on a vaccine to cure disinformation. And we're not sure if it leaked from, let's say.
Sounds like the police are coming to get Fauci for all his lies.
Well, using humor during a pandemic has never worked, if we look throughout history. But that was actually.
Excuse me. See, now I don't even know what medical school you went to, because it's very well known that laughter is the best medicine. So already we see that you're sort of not a real doctor. I always had my suspicions.
Maybe you can't hear me with the masks. Do you want me to take it off? Would it make?
No, you can keep the mask on, because we don't want you. We don't want COVID. Zoom is a China company, and maybe they'll send you COVID through the Zoom. So very, very safe, Fauci.
Well, it's, funny as it is, we're still doing research on droplets making their way through the Zoom speaker, and even going through the airwaves and coming out somebody else's computer and infecting them through the ears, nose, or mouth. So that's something that we're working on. And
as well as some of the movies I like to watch, we got to find out if you can get COVID ass to mouth.
Well, I'm going to be a little adventurous, we'll say, today.
Oh, wow. He's taking the mask off. Oh, he's got two on. Oh, he's taking the first one off. He's taking.
I'll take.
Oh, I saw his nostrils.
Uh-oh.
He's gonna die now. I saw a nostril.
I actually just got my third shot, so I'm gonna go all the way off. And just a fair warning, I've been getting a lot of attention from, let's say, the female species. My interviews have been very popular, so I have a fake beard to prevent women spreading, let's say, a different kind of droplets.
You look like Rabbi Fauciwitz right now.
Well, that's the kind of xenophobic and anti-Semitic humor that is led to, and the numbers aren't in, but under 1 million deaths from Asian hate that spread from the seat you're sitting in. So,
Everybody, yes, we had the Stop Asian Hate hashtag. How about the fact that Trump stopped Asian virus? Nobody put that hashtag out. Nobody, you certainly didn't, tech stuff.
I wanted to, you guys seem to really not get along, and it's very open. I wanted to know about what was the initial incident that caused you two not to get along? Do you guys remember?
I actually do remember. And it was the moment that he was born. That would be called the origin, as we say in epidemiology.
Well, I can tell you, okay, since Fauci thinks he's Mr. Funny Guy, I'm going to tell you right now what happened. Mike Pence was in our meeting of the coronavirus task force, and he was talking about what a great job I was doing as a leader, the strength I was showing, the command of the facts. And then Fauci blew his nose right in the middle of Mike Pence, metaphorically blowing me. He was saying, "Mr. President, sir, you're the greatest president we've ever had." And then all of a sudden I hear this little sneeze from like a little Keebler elf in the back, like, and I said, "Who did that?" And I saw it was Fauci, and I knew he had no respect. You should see the way the other people in the meeting, they hold in their coughs and their sneeze. They give me almost that North Korea level of respect. That Fauci was just there blowing his nose, and it was a total disgrace.
Dr. Fauci, was that 10 tally marks of misinformation already?
Yeah, that was actually me just warming up the marker. So, I'm just getting started. And I just got to say very briefly that I have 15 other interviews tonight. I'm going on the Jimmy Kimmel and the Jimmy Fallon. I'm doing the gay guys interview show. And we're actually going to be digging up Johnny Carson and revaccinating him because they're so effective. And we just thought it would be important to have my face on his show. So let's try to keep this.
They don't make them like Johnny Carson anymore. That I can agree. I endorse bringing him back from the dead.
Now, a couple other things I wanted to ask you, Dr. Fauci. If you were the sitting president...
on this podcast, Mar-a-Lago executive order, Fauci.
So just ignore that he's a doctor?
We don't recognize his doctor. It's like a Jill Biden doctor.
Similar to the president title in your name, we'll say that'll keep us on an even keel.
Okay. No, I am president.
I work for this man. So Fauci, if you were president instead of Mr. President, how would you have handled the COVID situation differently?
Well, I mean, I'd have to cancel 9 out of 12 interviews to complete the question. But for starters, I wouldn't be going on the national television with the kind of sniffling between every sentence, sniffling, which is, as a commander in chief, you don't want to be showing COVID symptoms between every word you say, doing the sniffing. So I would start with like a Flonase or something. Second of all,
he obviously has me confused with Don Jr., who's the one who does lots of snorting.
Well, I'm not going to get into your child's cocaine and probably heroin issues, but that's not me to.
Well, I excuse me. Okay, we have not conclusively proven he's my child. I refer to him as Don Jr., but we don't know that he's actually mine.
Well, by the way, we did find his laptop in Delaware, and there could be some incriminating stuff on there. So I would just have him keep his nose and mouth shut for the near future if he wants to avoid any criminal punishments.
As long as it's not Ivanka, we're okay.
So, Fauci, you did not agree how President Trump handled the pandemic. You guys were at each other's throats, to say the least. How do you think I'm Sleepy Joe is handling the pandemic?
I assume you're referring to the current president.
That's what he is referred to on this podcast. And
Tech stuff. When he calls him President Biden, can you put air quotes, since I don't know if he can?
Sure.
He might not be. He's a little too small, I think, to make air quotes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. We've done a hand to hand, and my fingers are just, let's say, socially distanced above yours. And for a small guy to have bigger hands than a guy of your stature, we won't go into the science of what that means for physiology, as far as the physics. But basically, Joe he's awake. He's awake, and I would call him even woke to an extreme extent. He's developed the vaccine.
He's sleepwalking. The worst combination of both, sleepy and woke. Sleepwalking with Biden, a new one-man show from Birbiglia Leguizamo.
Well, okay. He's doing a fantastic job. He's rolling out the vaccine at record numbers. People trust him, and they're lining up to get the vaccine, and soon we'll have children able to get the shots. We're even doing it at Friendly's, the ice cream place, so they can have the sundaes.
Okay, you see what Fauci's doing? He's trying to take credit for this. I've already announced, okay, because Pfizer announced that they can do 12 to 15-year-olds. So Matt Gaetz, the great Matt Gaetz, is going to be doing a vaccination drive for 12 to 15-year-old girls at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, okay? Very exclusive. We're waiving our membership fee. So we're being very proactive about this. So, the Matt Gaetz, they call him the Pied Piper of country music. So it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Well, the problem with Matt Gaetz distributing the vaccine is that they really only need one shot entering their body and not two, if you know where I'm going with this. So I would avoid having him around children or the vaccine at all costs.
Well, we've also tried to turn, as we covered on the show a few weeks ago, a total disgrace that happened in Florida. They're demolishing the great home of a hero named Jeffrey Epstein. And so we are actually turning that site into a mega, they've been calling these things like a mega vaccination site. So we will be having, to honor Jeffrey Epstein, we will also be having a huge youth party for vaccinations on the site of Jeffrey Epstein's estate.
The thought of it is so filthy, I actually have to wipe my camera off.
Fauci, do you?
I think there's not. I think it's a great thing. We get our young people vaccinated. Everybody says I'm not promoting the vaccine. We get our people vaccinated, our young people, and also it's like a nice honor to we say roll up your sleeve, or if you want to honor Jeff Epstein, roll up your skirt, and you can have it in the thigh. So we're giving options, is what I'm saying.
This is a big area that you missed out as far as protecting children. The vaccine for the children is not enough. And we really have to be triple or quadrupling masks when the children are outside. But I would go a step further. If possible, I would keep them in a hefty garbage bag with a few holes just to encourage breathing. But again, it's not going to offer the protection.
We're in agreement, because I know that Sir Jeffrey Epstein, and we have to discuss whether or not, by the way, did you hear about Bill Gates? I want to get to that. Bill Gates' wife, Melinda, is divorcing him because she found out he had hung out with Epstein. So obviously we have to review whether we even want to call Sir Jeffrey Epstein anymore. There might be a demotion if he was cheating on me with other billionaires. But the point is, Jeffrey Epstein used to take teenagers out of his house in garbage bags all the time. So there's nothing new about what Fauci's saying right now. He acts like he's coming in here with I'm fresh Fauci with new ideas. Sorry, Jeff Epstein was doing that a lot longer than you.
Not enough. The bag is not enough. I would go a step further, and if possible, dip your children in a vat of warm to boiling wax. Of course, not too hot, because it'll seal up. You can, of course, put a straw, but it would offer a more complete protection, like that cheese, you remember, where you'd have the red wax. And if you can afford it, of course, ship them off to a place like Iceland or Greenland, where they can do not 6, but 6 miles or kilometers of social distancing between other school children. We clearly weren't prepared to take this extra step that's necessary to saving somewhere under 10 million lives.
You see this? This is the radical left. This is the savior of the radical left.
This is a very
Fearful
interesting.
Fearful Fauci.
Thank you. Now let's get back, Fauci. I'm learning so much tonight with all the social distancing. I don't think I've been social distancing enough, and I'm going to change that because I've been learning so much. It's not 6 feet; it's 6 kilometers, or to 6 miles. You were saying?
It's potato. It could be 6. It could be 12. It could be 30. It could be 40. It could be separating children by putting each of them on a different continent, but you're missing the point.
Rabbi Fauci is trying to destroy our economy.
Well,
he now has payas made of masks. I learned that word from my great friend Bibi Netanyahu. Tough Bibi.
I mean, it's the amount of interruptions. I would recommend instead you read my new book about reopening.
What is it called?
It's called Reopening. When possibly, maybe, we can consider the thought of conceptualizing the possibility of pondering the idea of considering opening, but probably not.
It's a long title.
Well, it's a complicated virus.
I don't like the fact that it sounds like Fauci almost stole that title from Mike Pence, who's writing a book called Open Me Up and Fill Me Up, a story of my journey of faith by Mike Pence.
Speaking of Mike Pence and his faith, what do you think about Tim Tebow going back to the NFL, Mr. President? Are you curious to see him?
For our listeners, our Patreon Perfect 10 listeners, they know that Mike Pence issued a video last month urging, in strong support of Tim Tebow. So obviously, even Mike Pence, just by being associated with me, seems to have still a little bit of juice, a little bit of power. So that's great for the podcast that we were able to get Tim Tebow some work. He's going to Jacksonville.
Correct, with his old coach.
Yeah, well, he's not going to play behind that. They drafted that woman at quarterback, right?
Trevor Lawrence, but he's going to be playing tight end. He's going to be blocking and catching passes over the middle.
And that is, I should have remembered that, because that's exactly what Mike Pence talked about in the Perfect 10 video. Right, he's going to be, let me ask you a question. What do you think Mike Pence's level of excitement is for a buff, handsome, evangelical Christian who's going to be playing tight end? What do you think Mike Pence's level of excitement is?
I think he's already got the jersey.
And Karen, Mother Pence, is wearing it when he plows her. It's a new thing. It's going to be the new meme that all the evangelical closeted kids are doing, called Tebowing.
Which is doggy styling your wife while she wears a jersey.
Bingo.
How many millions of votes did you lose by? Just curious.
The Fauci fake votes or the real, legitimate, lawful votes?
I think you just showed everybody where those votes went.
Well,
I won the election, and that is the official stance of the podcast.
I wanted to ask everyone, how is everyone's Mother's Day, and how did everybody spend their Mother's Day? Fauci, what did you do on Mother's Day? Is your mother still with us? I don't know anything about your personal life, really.
She's with us in spirit. She motivated me to be a, let's say, interviewee on a podcast / epidemiologist. And I went to visit her, believe it or not, because I got the vaccine. Here's the thing, I mean, if you want to, well, it's important. If you want to visit your parents in the graveyard, you've got to get vaccinated. And it doesn't mean you can go getting up to the grave and doing, hello, mother. You have to put a plastic covering over the grave. Because droplets can still infect the deceased, which can then eventually leak into the groundwater. That could get into the local drinking supply. And now you're killing children at the millions, which is why we cannot think about reopening. And we had a wonderful time. We had a picnic. I brought a sanitized, almost like an airplane meal in plastic. And we had a very nice Mother's Day.
That sounds awesome. Mr. President, how do you spend your Mother's Day?
First of all, I hope everybody realizes this is what the hell we're dealing with Fauci under Sleepy Joe. What I am going to tell you is what I do for Mother's Day. We have a strong tradition at the Trump Mar-a-Lago. Obviously, for the Patreon people last year, they heard about really a legendary Mother's Day tradition. It's sort of legend among our fans. But what I do now that the great Fred Trump is no longer with us, every Mother's Day, Ivana, my first wife, who's very ugly now, so she's not attractive, she comes down to Mar-a-Lago. Martha Maples comes down to Mar-a-Lago, and melatonin comes out of her bat cave. And they all gather around me while I eat my McDonald's breakfast. And they all tell me how thankful they are that because of my strong sperm, I allowed them to celebrate this holiday, because they would be nothing. They would just be a woman. They'd be old women without my strong penetration. But because I gave them the Trump serum and they brought life into the world, allegedly.
Mr. President, do you see Fauci is using his masks as ear covers so he can't hear you?
Well, his ears are probably getting COVID in them, so I hope he hears that. And they sit around and they say, "Sir, thank you for giving me Trump jizz." And I say, "You're very welcome." And we have a nice brunch. And then for the rest of Mother's Day, we go to Roger Stone's and watch various young men destroy his wife. And that's it. So it's, very traditional, very family oriented sort of experience.
Is he putting the mask now on the camera?
Well, my mind now has gone. It was possible. But my imagination is infected. It's in the ICU as we speak on a respirator.
This is her Sleepy Joe. This is the level of non-toughness that Sleepy Joe wants.
Well, you know what? Let's bring up maybe a news topic that you guys can maybe agree upon here. Did any of you guys catch the Kentucky Derby?
I did, yes.
Okay, there's something both of you did. Now, Moderna Spirit, the winner, Mr. President, you said that the horse is a junkie. You were quoted as saying, the horse didn't shoot up drugs. The trainer shot the horse up with drugs So the horse really can't voluntarily like shoot himself up, but you can shoot yourself up with hooves. You know what I mean? With horseshoes, you can't do that. You need fingers.
Okay. Well, when we were having parties at Jeff Epstein's house, I didn't get the ninth graders drunk, but once they were, anyway, that's for another time. The horse, you never had this under my administration or any other administration, but under Sleepy Joe, you have horses walking around, probably on opioids, and nobody cares. You ruined the Kentucky Derby. I turned on the Derby hoping to see some of the horses running over Mitch McConnell. But, we sit, we watch, and all of a sudden we've got drugs. And now the Democrats like Fauci, because he's a Democrat, they're going to bring these horses into the suburbs, probably with Cory Booker riding on them, giving drugs to your kids in the suburbs, lowering your property values. This is what happens when you let a Sleepy Joe take over everything. Everything goes to hell. All the way. Whoever thought the Kentucky Derby would become a disgrace? But now it's a disgrace because we have Sleepy Joe.
Now, Fauci, I was wondering if you saw, I think his name is Bob Baffert, the trainer of Moderna Spirit. I think the owner also.
Great guy.
And he was calling this whole thing of people blowing the whistle on him for drugging his horse as cancel culture. What are your thoughts on that, Fauci? And Mr. President, we'll ask you after, but I want to hear what Fauci has to say about the cancel culture.
First of all, they changed the name as a patriotic act to Moderna Spirit. Well, we didn't pay. They said we paid them to make the switch, but they're patriotic. And first off, I'd say it was difficult to even watch the race because as much as I love saving millions, if not billions of lives every day, my dream was to become a jockey. But unfortunately, I was too small. And
you were too short to become a jockey? That's sad.
And so it's tough to watch. It's very tough to watch. But I still feel like I'm riding a horse. I'm like a knight riding into the dusk and fighting off all the mean spirits in the evil woods and saving lives.
Excuse me. You know why Fauci? This is another reason why he's so terrible. The guy was too small to be a jockey, which I can see. The guy's it's like a Smurf. He's like the town doctor in the Smurfs. And then all of a sudden, he keeps bragging about all his basketball playing. So he's too small for a jockey, but he has so low intellect, so low IQ that he said, let me play basketball instead. This is what we're dealing with. This is who the Democrats decided should be in charge of erectile dysfunctionology.
That's one way to put the issue that we discussed that you had on a nightly basis. A lot of things were limp in your administration, and that was the least.
Well, you know what? Fred Durst did meet us for a brunch. Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. We meet with all the great rap rock artists of the late 90s.
The real crime is that you decided to hire people half your size so that you look bigger. And I think the American people were onto this. The tiny people in the administration were just pawns to make you look larger, but the hands just gave it away. You can't hide a hand. And with all the hand movements, I would think you wouldn't be doing so much of the chopping and the spreading. But again, there's missing pieces.
As I told little Marco, no problem with my hands. I wish I hadn't used little Marco on Marco because, we should have been saying Tiny Fauci. I would play Tiny Dancer by Elton John every time he would walk into a meeting.
Yeah. Well, you certainly were holding people closer during a pandemic when you should have been socially distancing. We'll say that.
Now, Fauci, I know you're very busy.
I don't want to go on with you like that.
Now, I know you're very busy. You have a lot of interviews today. We have one more last piece of news here.
Yeah, Mark Maron just texted me, so we're quick in the car. I have to do it in the car on my way to another one. It's mostly my job, and then 10 minutes we stir some of this. I mean, and by the way, this is basically the science you got to follow: blue, orange, red, green, yellow. And you get the vaccine. It's not hard to follow that.
Thank you for the science. What are your thoughts on Liz Cheney, Fauci?
Well, I think she's doing a fantastic job of holding certain people that may or may not be on this 3-prov right now accountable.
Well, she's about to lose her leadership spot in the House for not embracing what people are calling the Trump election lie. That's what the media is calling it.
That's what liars call it. Liars call it the lie. The truthers call it the truth.
Well, I'd say
interesting cough, Fauci. I hope you didn't get any COVID.
Well, I've been brushing my teeth with hand sanitizer as an extra precaution, because just because you have the vaccine doesn't mean you can go back to doing anything any differently than you were doing before you got it. And that's the science. But I applaud her for sticking up to a bully, for lack of better terms, because I experienced it. It's part of the reason I didn't speak up, for fear of being put in what people thought was a figurative cage, but it was a literal cage that the president would put me in when I went against his words. And I didn't want to spend time in the basement in the cage.
I don't deny this. We had a little parakeet, and we would just sit Fauci right next to the parakeet, and the parakeet would say, "China virus," over and over again.
Humiliating. And so I applaud her for risking that type of backlash.
What a you're applauding her. That's nice.
I used to be a fan of Liz Cheney.
What
when I talked about her with Ben Carson, I would call her a pog. Do you know that phrase?
Yeah, it's a girl with a white girl with a fat ass. Isn't that what a pog is?
That's Ben Carson. He said to me, Mr. President, Liz Cheney is a fat ass white girl. And I said, you go back to sleep, Ben, but you make a good point. She has kind of a chunky sexuality to her, but you know what? If you don't embrace the truth, which is that we had an election hoax, then you can't be in leadership, not in the Trump MAGA Republican Party. So I think they're making the right decision, and she can go back and maybe she can play Battleship with her crazy father, and they can try to they'll murder some people in a Call of Duty video game. That's probably what Dick Cheney does all day.
Yeah, I'm getting the Johnson & Johnson as soon as we hang up, just to be safe.
Now, I've one quick question before we let you go, Fauci.
Mike Pence, he told me he was getting the Johnson & Johnson, and I said, "Oh, the vaccine." And he said, "What vaccine?"
Now, I have one last question. Mr. President, you said that you kept Fauci in a parakeet cage, and we know that Fauci was very visible every single day in the news conferences and then disappeared. Now, Fauci, do you remember the point at which the president just had you disappear from all the press conferences?
Oh, excuse me.
I'm actually cleaning my screen from the Fauci germs.
I unfortunately just got my test results back, and I'm allergic to bullshit. So it's, I remember when he claimed that we should be ingesting bleaches, and he came to me in my office once, or cage, if you want to call it a cage, and said, "What if we try this thing where he said, Banaka, right? You remember? He said, what if we do a Lysol Banaka and we trick people into ingesting this poisonous thing?" And I said, "That's a bad idea." And he said, "You're done. You're done." And then he wanted to do another. He was doing all these household cleaner remedies. He once came up, I'm not even kidding. He said, what if we take a plunger? He said, I was on the toilet tweeting, which is where I do most of my work. And he said, the mouth is like the drain of the body. What if we try to plunge it out? And I said, this man is mentally ill. And I want to say one more thing that really put me over.
And notice we never did that, and we lost hundreds of thousands of people.
The final suggestion, which I've never told anybody. He said to me, Dr. Fauci, my phone fell in a glass of water, and I read that you could put it in a bowl of rice and it comes back to life. He said, what if we took out the lung infected by the COVID and put it in a bowl of rice? And then he said, it's a China virus. It feeds off of rice. And that was it for me. That was it.
Well, and you know what? I stand by that suggestion. We never did it, so we don't know that it doesn't work. But, along those lines, we were trying many Asian cures, okay? Herbal remedies, everybody loves those. Oh, you've got to use the natural medicines. And Mike Pence had offered to have sex with a panda bear. I don't know if he meant literally. Well, he said it was a biracial chubby guy that he was going to see that night. And he called him a panda bear. I don't know if we're making up a new term for the LGBTQ dating scene, but he said he was going to have sex with a panda bear. And I said, well, we'll see if it works. I liked Kung Fu Panda. It was a good movie.
Well, this has been, it doesn't seem like you guys have buried the hatchet. It seems like you guys still dislike each other, and maybe, when this pandemic is over, we can have Fauci here again, and maybe you, after there's no pandemic and no COVID to worry about, maybe you guys can actually become not enemies. I'm not going to say friends, but just not enemies. Maybe we can work to that. I don't know. Fauci looked at me like no shot in hell, and Mr. President might be open to it. So we can see. No, both of them are not open to it. Okay.
I'm open to like a celebrity boxing match against Fauci.
Okay.
The no shot in hell is that this thing will be done in a year. I'd say 1 to 3 to 5 to 12 to 25 years. You can start thinking about the idea of considering ponding the notion, conceptualizing the thought of maybe reopening, but probably not. It's out on Amazon today.
Well, pick up Fauci's book. It's too long of a title for me to remember, but just look up Dr. Fauci, and I'm sure it will pop up in Google. And Dr. Fauci, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Pick up his book. Mr. President, do you have any parting words for us besides joining the Patreon, patreon.com/MPGA?
I will say I think we should have our next live show, because we had such great live interactions, the last one for the Perfect Tens. I would like to revisit the idea of whether Jeffrey Epstein was disloyal to me by hanging out with Bill Gates, because that, we've had many tragedies happen in the last year, mostly around me having the election stolen from me. But I have to say, finding out that Jeffrey Epstein had another billionaire friend was, you see your whole life and you see it differently. The great people that you thought you could trust your whole life.
Let's put them on trial. Let's put them on trial.
I think Jeffrey Epstein should go on trial, and we will, perhaps we can dole out assignments. Our vice president can be lead counsel for the defense, and maybe our president can be the prosecutor. But anyway, that's not to bore Dr. Fauci. He's got to go and, put on a 19th mask and
a lot of tallies, a lot of tallies.
Nobody's ever had more tallies than that. Once again, Trump setting records.
He ran out of ink about 30 seconds into the conversation.
Now, Dr. Fauci, would you like to plug anything for real, or we're going to stay as Dr. Fauci?
Well, my good friend Tyler Fischer, a fantastic comedian, has a Patreon as well. where he does a live Zoom show every month. It's patreon.com/Tyler Talks. He's got a podcast, The Tyler Fischer Show, and he does an impression of me that's actually not half bad.
Does he spell Fisher with the C, with the C word mixed in?
Fischer, and he does a great impression.
So everybody check out Tyler Fischer. I heard he's a really funny guy, good dude. That's Tyler Fischer with a C, Fischer. Thank you so much, Fauci, for coming on today. And I know you have a very busy schedule. We appreciate it. Thank you again. Mr. President, any closing words for us?
I've never meant these words more than in my entire life, but after dealing with this clearly anti-faith, radical left, so-called doctor, God help us all.